Joe Morgan was born on September 19, 1943 in Bonham, Texas. At age 5, his family moved to Oakland, California, and it is there that he began playing baseball at age 13 with the Babe Ruth League. In high school, he ran track, he played basketball, and he played baseball. But at 5'7", he was considered to be too short to make it in the majors, and therefore, after high school, he was not offered a scholarship to play baseball, nor was he signed as an amateur free agent. So Morgan went to the Oakland City College, and he became a standout with their baseball team. So much so that the expansion Houston Colt 45s signed him in 1962. Joe Morgan would go on to be a 2-time MVP and win the World Series twice. In his career, Joe Morgan was a Phillies killer who later became a Philly. Joe Morgan died on October 11, 2020. He was 77 years old. Welcome to Philadelphia Baseball History. On this channel, we talk about the history of baseball from the A's to the Phillies to the 19th century. And sometimes we talk about contemporary baseball issues. So if you love baseball and if you love Philadelphia, stick around and subscribe to our channel. Growing up in Oakland, California, Joe Morgan did not see the institutional racism to the extent that was present in the Old South. That changed in 1963 when he began playing for the Durham Bulls. He was the only African American on the team, and he saw firsthand how he was not allowed to be in the same hotel as the white players, how there were segregated water fountains, and how the rooting section for the African American fans of the Bulls looked more like a prison than part of the stadium. At first, he was discouraged when he saw this segregation up front and in person, but he eventually decided to continue with his baseball career. In his first at-bat with the Durham Bulls, he hit a pinch hit walk-off home run, and that helped endear him to the Durham residents. Joe Morgan was called up in September of 1963, and he made his debut against, of all teams, the Philadelphia Phillies. He faced pitcher Dallas Green, and he popped up in his first at-bat. But his first hit would come in his second game against the Phillies. In the bottom of the ninth inning, he hit a walk-off RBI single, and that started his career as a Phillies killer. After spending the 1960s in Houston, he was traded to the Cincinnati Reds in 1971. And in 1972, Joe Morgan led the National League in walks, runs, and on-base percentage. He was described by manager Sparky Anderson as the smartest player I had ever seen. His MVP years were in 1975 and 1976. In both years, while playing for the Big Red Machine, he won the World Series. In 1975, he led the major leagues in on-base percentage and OPS. And in 1976, he improved on that by leading the major leagues in on-base percentage, slugging percentage, and OPS. He would make 10 All-Star appearances and earn 5 Gold Gloves as a second baseman. He faced the Phillies twice in the NLCS, the first time in 1976 as a member of that Reds team that swept the Phillies, and then again in 1980 in what was the closest NLCS in Major League history, when again he returned to play for the Houston Astros. In 1983, he was traded by the San Francisco Giants to the Philadelphia Phillies, where he joined 2 of his former teammates from the Big Red Machine, Pete Rose and Tony Perez. 1983 was the year that the Phillies celebrated their 100th anniversary in existence. With players like Morgan, who was 36 years old, Pete Rose, who was 42, and Tony Perez, who was 41, the Phil's average age was 32.1 years. That was the highest in the major leagues. Compare that to the average age of major league teams of 28.6. There was a joke that in the 100th anniversary of the Phillies franchise, the team was trying to make the team as close to 100 as it possibly could. That team was nicknamed the Wheeze Kids, a play off the nickname of the 1950 Phillies team called the Whiz Kids that featured young players fresh out of the farm system. In fact, the only player who was under 30 years old in the Phillies starting lineup was right fielder Von Hayes. He was 24. The pitching staff was equally seasoned. Steve Carlton was 38, John Denny 30, and Dick Ruffin 32. And while Larry Christensen had not yet reached age 30, well, he was pushing it at age 29. So it took many in baseball by surprise in 1983 when the National League East race became a race between four teams: Pittsburgh, Montreal, St. Louis, and the Wheeze Kids of Philadelphia. Now, the Phillies in the early part of the season remained within striking distance of first place. However, by June 24th, they had fallen 5.5 games behind the Expos. But by the All-Star break, which was July 4th, the Phillies had climbed to a game-and-a-half back. The race tightened by the end of July, when about 2 games separated those four teams: Pittsburgh, Montreal, St. Louis, and Philadelphia. The Phillies hung in there in August and through mid-September, but then on September 16th, things changed. The Phillies went on an 11-game winning streak. That included series sweeps of Montreal, Chicago, and 2 series sweeps of St. Louis, home and away. By September 26th, Pittsburgh was the only contender remaining, and they were 4.5 games behind the Phillies. With some help of the Mets, who defeated the Pirates that day, the Phillies clinched the NL East in Chicago on September 28th. In fact, they trounced the Cubs by a score of 13-6. Joe Morgan went 4 for 4 that day, scoring 2 runs and driving in 2 RBIs. And then, for good measure, the Phillies defeated the Pirates 2 out of 3 games in the final series of the season. The Wheeze Kids went on to win the pennant, defeating the Dodgers 3-1 in the NLCS. 32-year-old Gary Matthews was named the NLCS MVP. He had a slash line of .429, .500, and .1.071. Matthews had scored 4 runs, hit 3 home runs, and drove in 8 RBIs. The World Series is when time finally caught up with the Wheeze Kids. Almost the entire team batted poorly against a very talented Orioles pitching staff that included Jim Palmer. The entire team's slash line was .195, .228, .308. Morgan was released by the Phillies at the end of the 1983 season, and he played his final year of his career in his hometown of Oakland. Joe Morgan went on to become a broadcaster, first for the Reds, then for ABC, then NBC, and then finally with ESPN. And there is one thing that is for sure: Joe Morgan was a Phillies killer who became a Philly. In Joe Morgan's career, he batted .271. He had an on-base percentage of .392 and a slugging percentage of .427. Yet against the Phillies, his batting average was .296. His on-base percentage was .402, and his slugging percentage was .452. In fact, if you took the average player during Morgan's 22-year career from 1963 through 1984, that average player would have batted .256 against the Phillies, with an on-base percentage of .310 and a slugging percentage of .38. Morgan's career number against the Phillies were far above the average player. In fact, if you took Morgan's entire career and you calculated a 162-game average against the Phillies, he would have averaged 95 runs a year and 40 stolen bases. During his career, which was from 1963 to 1984, the average player would have a 162-game average of 72 runs and 11 stolen bases. Morgan got the opportunity to join the Phillies in 1983, which was the year of their 100th anniversary. The leadership of players such as Morgan, Pete Rose, and Tony Perez that helped push that Phillies team to surprise the baseball world and win the National League pennant. Joe Morgan was much loved by the fans and respected wherever he played baseball. Death is a huge loss of a great ambassador for the sport. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you have any ideas for topics that we can cover in the future, please let us know in the comments below. If you would like to see more of these videos, please consider becoming a patron through Patreon. Again, we'll have a link in the description box below.